Oh boy, new Dark Eldar. Those are really cool. Wait a minute. That means we're definitely getting Orks in 11th edition. Wow! Welcome back to the room. Let's go fast. Old Big Mek here for kind of an unplanned video. But yes, it is true. There are new Dark Eldar being released. We saw a Battle Force, a Combat Patrol, 2 brand new characters, and confirmation, beyond all doubt, that Orks are the antagonists for 11th edition. Let me explain, and we'll get into it. Alright, so for those of you that have been living under a rock, Games Workshop updates Warhammer 40k for a new edition about every 3 to 5 years, depending on how their business is doing and kind of other things going on. And 10th edition now has been around for 2 solid years. So we know that 11th edition is more than likely coming next summer in 2026. I have a little theory that it might be after that, but we'll talk about that in a second. The other big piece about this whole 11th edition coming out was speculation on who the armies were going to be. Obviously, the good guy side, the protagonists are beakies. Good old-fashioned Space Marines. They have been the protagonists in literally every single box. You had generic Space Marines in 2nd edition, although the artwork was Blood Angels. You had generic Space Marines in 3rd edition, although the artwork was Black Templars. Although back then, Black Templars weren't close combat yet. Another thing we'll talk about. 4th edition, they were the poster boys in Ultramarines. 5th edition, same thing. 6th edition, 7th edition, 8th, 9th, 10th. There's always a Space Marine set in that box. What changes is the antagonist, who the bad guys are. Now, 2nd edition launched with Orks. We were the original baddies, and it was an excellent box that had lots and lots of traction, came with a ton of grots, a ton of boys, and the infamous cardboard Death Dread. 3rd edition, we did indeed get Dark Eldar. In fact, I am the original owner of this here 3rd edition box, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. And then in 4th edition, you got Tyranids. 5th edition, Orks came back. 6th and 7th were both the Chaos, but they weren't really Chaos Space Marines. You had like all the cultists in there, and then like the big Mauler Fiend, Forge Fiend Beast, and a couple other like really random things versus the Dark Angels specific dudes. And then 8th edition with the big relaunch of 40k, that's when we got the Stinky Beakies and got good old-fashioned Death Guard for good old Papa Nurgle. 9th edition brought us Indomitus and the Necrons. And then, of course, the current edition, 10th edition, our current big bad is the Tyranids. So there's a pretty good cycle through of what the bad guys are. However, we didn't really know what 11th edition was going to be. You kind of really can't tell these things until they come out or until Games Workshop starts leaking things. And well, today was a pretty big, I don't want to say leak, but admission. All right, first, some context for you. Again, old Big Mek does go way, way, way back to 3rd edition when this box came out, which I want to say was 1998 or 1999, something like that, when this particular box hit the market. And this box was a crazy good box. This was the only starter edition that I can think of where all of the models were full fat. They were all the multi-pose models. They were the ones you got in the regular boxes. There was no monopose, there was no push fit. You got the real deal. And what you got here was 10 Space Marines, so good old-fashioned tactical squad, a Land Speeder, which was a brand spanking new kit, all plastic, and then 20 of these Dark Eldar warriors, along with some terrain and whippy sticks and all sorts of other cool stuff. It was an all-time classic. You'll notice that these Dark Eldar are just warriors. They're not really anything crazy. They're not witches. They're not succubuses. They don't have all of the crazy skin flailing and head taking and all that other like really kind of out there stuff that Dark Eldar ended up becoming known for. At the time, they were just kind of bad guy Eldar, and yeah, it was all right. This box, as popular as it was and as good as it was, sat on the shelves for a really long time. You could pick these up for super cheap well into 4th edition. In fact, the Dark Eldar half of this box was super cheap all the way until today. I know this because, again, real life orc, not very many teeth to go around, having to build an army. Warhammer is a very expensive hobby, and people were buying these boxes and then selling the Dark Eldar for very cheap because they didn't want to do a Dark Eldar army. So I ended up with like 80 warriors within a couple of months of starting 40K. And believe me, you couldn't trip without falling into some more Dark Eldar. They just weren't all that popular, truth be told. So much so that somewhere in 5th edition, Dark Eldar ceased being an actual faction in Warhammer 40K, at least here in the United States. Now, I have been told by friends and family that live overseas that that was not true necessarily everywhere, especially not in the UK. But here in the US, yeah, they pulled the entire Dark Eldar lineup from the stores and just pretended like they didn't exist for almost an entire edition. So, that being said, Games Workshop, especially in the US, is a little bit leery of Dark Eldar. Again, multiple reasons. You've got the one box that they were in wasn't their best seller, although I don't really think that was the Dark Eldar's fault. But again, not the best seller when it comes to their launch boxes. And then you've got this whole kind of dichotomy thing with Warhammer being advertised as great for gifts, especially for, you know, teenagers and maybe like some preteen age, you know, but a nice hobby that is not on a screen, right? Parents and grandparents get involved. There's school clubs, all that kind of stuff. Having your main box that everyone's supposed to start with have a bunch of scantily clad, blood-sucking, death-dealing Dark Eldar is maybe not the best look, and will definitely turn off some subset of customers. Now, obviously, you're not going to please everyone. 40K is very much an over-the-top universe on purpose, and yeah, it's dark, and it's crazy, and there's all sorts of wacky stuff going on, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to plaster it all over the front of your launch box. And that was why I was certain Dark Eldar were never coming back to the launch box. Which leaves, like, what other forces? A lot of people have said Tau would be good. Tau are indeed very popular, especially with new players. Pretty easy to you know, justify buying for outsiders because it's just giant stompy robots and cool little alien dudes. Yeah, nothing really controversial there. The problem being, Tau to a layman or to somebody not familiar with 40K are a little generic. They kind of get lost amongst all the other big stompy robot things, you know, your Battletech and your Robotech and Gundam and all that kind of stuff. And they also kind of sort of look a little bit like Space Marines. Obviously, I know that's not true. You know that's not true. But if you've never seen Warhammer 40K before and you don't really know what it is, and you're looking at a picture of a box and it's got two armies on it, and you have armored dudes with some robots and armored dudes with some robots, it's going to be a little confusing. So I really didn't think Tau stood a shot. Now, Chaos are always good. However, Chaos were, again, in 3 of the last 5 launch boxes. And for some reason, although the Death Guard one was definitely an exception, that one sold incredibly well, but the other 2 really didn't. And I don't know if part of that was because they weren't Chaos Space Marines, or if, like, the whole being Dark Angels and not generic Space Marines on the protagonist half hurt, or some combination thereof. But basically, it also comes down to the whole they look the same versus they look the same. And also, nowadays, in 2025, you've got Horus Heresy boxes out there, which are Space Marine on Space Marine. So having another box of Space Marine on Space Marine for a different game doesn't make a lick of sense. Now, obviously, Games Workshop is not going to redo the same factions. So Tyranids are out. Necrons were just the one before that. They're out too. And that really only leaves you with Eldar, Orcs, and maybe Leagues of Votann. Although, again, they suffer from the same thing as Tau and Chaos Space Marines. They're armored dudes that laymen can't really tell apart. They also have a very small range, which some people argue makes them great for like a launch box to start them off and whatnot. But Games Workshop doesn't tend to do new ranges in these boxes. Again, ever since this whole debacle. I think a big part of this box not selling so great, or especially the Dark Eldar not being so popular, was because they were a brand spanking new army and they didn't really have anything going on yet. Regular Chaos would have been a much better choice for this box. And again, I say this as somebody who dearly, dearly loves his 3rd edition and the starter box and those original OG Dark Eldar. In fact, I had a huge Dark Eldar army, over 6,000 points, that I took all the way to some championships. Let's just say I haven't always been a filthy casual. What is that? 2005. I know there's viewers watching this that weren't born yet then. I'm old. But anyways, Eldar weren't going to be it because although they look different enough that I think even laymen can tell, especially if you've got like aspect warriors and all sorts of crazy stuff going on, they just had a monster range refresh. And there's no way that an army that had that much new stuff just happen is going to end up in the box. And that really only leaves orcs. Now, again, there were a lot of people rumoring Dark Eldar and saying that 11th edition is the big thing for Dark Eldar. They're going to redo the whole range and they're going to be in the launch box, yada, 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 yada. I think Games Workshop today proved that to be entirely incorrect. Hey, you! Yeah, you there, watching the video. You want to have the same drip old Big Mek wears? You need to check out our merch store at theredonesgofaster.com, where you can get our cool new Red Squig watch beanie. Or Red Squig the baseball cap. Not to mention the Red Squig shirt. We also have our original water bottle in metal. And of course the dirty paint water mug too. But even more fun is the Go Faster design from BenBam, available in black, fun colors, and even the full color hoodie style. Get yours all today at theredonesgofaster.com. All right, back to the video. Why is very, very, very simple. It's too close. Games Workshop learned their lesson with the whole Astra Militarum debacle of releasing their codex as the absolute last codex in an edition and then immediately getting rid of it. They pissed off a ton of fans. Those codexes are still out there on game store shelves, even though we're now an edition or 2 editions past. I'm not real sure if that was 8th or 9th that happened, but you guys know what I'm talking about. You guard players. I know somebody threw a basilisk at a wall at hearing and being reminded of paying for that codex, and then literally less than a month later having it be completely invalidated with a whole new edition coming out. So any codex that's coming out super late in the edition can really be discounted as being the start of a new one. It's just not going to happen. And like I said, we're probably less than a year away. I did allude to there might be a bigger gap next time, and here's why. If you read the Games Workshop financial statements as a stockholder, which anybody can go read them, you don't actually have to own stock to get these things. But if you go and read that, they talk about their main lines and what they are doing with those main lines and how those main lines affect their business. Okay, and the main lines being obviously Warhammer 40k, they're the 900-pound gorilla on the block. Age of Sigmar, which is doing surprisingly well and making a ton of money. Horus Heresy, which has now evolved and it started its 3rd edition and has become its whole own thing. And then Old World. Now, Old World people thought was going to be kind of a flash in the pan and like, all right, we satisfied all the people that we pissed off and we destroyed Warhammer Fantasy, but now they're making brand new armies for it, like Cathay, which is just absolutely amazing. And that range is going to continue. Again, it is super duper 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 popular. So what you're going to end up with is this big 4. And the big 4, they're going to be able to rotate every year, having a new edition for one of them, giving every single game a 4-year cycle, which actually works really well, especially with how many armies can be done for all of them. Now, Horus Heresy is a little bit iffy, They can kind of swap that back and forth with Kill Team or use it with other things. But again, all of the rumors when it comes to like the next book series, not the rumors, we know this to be true now because all the authors and Black Library announced it, but it's going to be the Scouring, which happens after the Heresy, and now you get to put, you know, alien species into it as well, have chaos be actual chaos and not just you know, Space Marines turning. And yeah, it's like this whole really cool period. So all the books are going to be in that, and there's a ton of rumors that the new Amazon shows being headed up by Henry Cavill himself are also going to feature the Scouring. So if Games Workshop is putting all of their print media and all of their visual media into that range, you can bet that they're going to have a game system for it, and it's probably going to be based on Horus Heresy. There's a lot of games out there that kind of have like an early period and a late period, or like the rules are the same for all the armies, but you can only use certain armies against each other. I could definitely see something like that happening. So again, what you get to is a big 4 every 4-year cycle thing. Now, does that mean they're going to wait a whole nother year for 40K? No, I don't think so. Old World is still building on its ton of steam. It doesn't need a second edition yet. Horus Heresy 3.0 just dropped this year. Age of Sigmar just dropped last year. We're definitely getting 40K in the summer of 26, but the next time might not be until 2030. Now, all that being said, all that history being dug into, all of that look at financials and other games and stuff, again, you have to go back to what is the protagonist going to be to 11th edition. You know it's Space Marines. Who is it going to be Space Marines against? And that answer is 1000% Orcs. And I'm not just saying that as an Orc fan. Obviously, Orcs are my main thing, but I love all of 40K. I have a huge Space Marine army. I have 3 different Imperial Guard armies, and I do mean different. I have got, like, old school 2nd, 3rd edition Valhalla Ice Warriors. I've got like 4th through 7th edition Cadians, and I've got brand new Death Corps of Kriegs, and they are all full armies. I've got Eldar armies. I've got Agents of the Imperium, Inquisition. I've got not Legion of the Damned. I used to have Legion of the Damned, but no, the Lost and the Damned. I've got like Chaos Cultists coming out my ears. I love everything 40K. I love all the armies. If I had the teeth, if I had the time, I would build and paint and own all the armies. And not just 40K either. I'd probably build everything. I really like Old World. I really like where Age of Sigmar is going. You'd probably count me out of Horus Heresy. It's just a little bit too much power armor for me, but the long and the short is I love everything. So I'm not just saying this as an Orc fan. I'm really coming at this from the analytical business point of view, which is my background. Orcs, their codex came out really early in 11th edition, and it needs a ton of help. The army is one of the longest, most storied armies in 40K history. And for the triple pop, we know that Dawn of War 4 is coming, right? And we know that Dawn of War 1, which just got remastered and re-released, is the Orcs. And everybody is so nostalgic for the Blood Ravens versus the Orcs and like seeing who can loot the most stuff. Obviously, if Games Workshop is smart, and when it comes to money they are, they're going to piggyback on that success, and Orcs are going to be part of that narrative and part of that big multimedia push where someone's going to play this game and go, man, this is really, really cool. Maybe I should look into the tabletop. They walk into a Warhammer store and bam, right there in front of their face is Space Marines versus Orcs, just like they get in their video game. Not to mention, some of the best-selling books outside of the Horus Heresy right now are all the ones about Orcs, especially the Mike Brooks series. You know we're probably getting some more of those as well, too. So yeah, you've got the super popular army. You've got all of these other armies that don't make sense. You've got the way the rules line up. It's pretty obvious. But I hear so many people and read so many comments of like, Orcs don't need anything, you know? They've already got everything. What are you going to do to Orcs? Buddy, first of all, the Orc boy kit is old enough to drink, okay? So yeah, we do need stuff. I know we got a monopose push fit boy kit from like 2017, 2018, 2019, something like that. But it's awful and nobody likes it, and it's so bad that Games Workshop had to keep the old kit in production even though they didn't want to. That tells you something. Outside of that, our whole army is a literal mess right now. We only have one generic leader option for our army that makes any sense, which is good old-fashioned war boss that has one kit that's completely mono build. We have no options. You look at like even the brand new Dark Eldar Archon that just got released. It has 2 different torsos, so you can make it male or female, and it's got like 10 different arms with weapons and stuff on it, like close combat and ranged and whatnot, different heads and helmets, and all sorts of really cool options. And all of the leader kits are going like that. The Space Marine Captain, the Eldar, the heck is that guy called? The Autarch? Yeah, that's the new thing, the Autarch. They're just all like that. And orcs need that too. And when you look outside of that, the rest of our HQs are kind of a mess. Yes, there is a War Boss and Mega Armor still. However, he is a push-fit, mono-build loadout. You can only build him one way, and that's that. It's lost all flavor. It's lost all compatibility and construction and whatnot. The Big Mek and Mega Armor is a bunch of bits included in the Mega Knobs box. So you can't even buy him on his own. And really, because they give you all these pieces, you can scratch build your own or kit bash out of a zillion other kits using those pieces as well. So there's not a lot of impetus there. The Pain Boy is a really ridiculously old mono pose kit. The Pain Boss is a brand new kit that's newish, that's pretty cool. But yeah, he's about it. Special characters are almost non-existent. You've got Gazgul, and then you've got crazy Zogrod Wurtsnaga with all the hair squig beard. That's it. We've lost everybody else. There is no Boss Zagstruck. There is no Captain Badrock. You know, we lost so many players. The only new guy that actually got refreshed was Snickrot himself. So we're really, really, really low on special characters. We've only got 3 that you can buy. We're really, really low on regular characters. You've only got a handful, and most of them are kits that are just about old enough to vote, if not older, and the ones that are actually available and out there are so mono build that there's no options for the army, which really, really, really restricts what Games Workshop can do with detachments, which is their big selling point right now. Heck, some of our guys are still in resin. The Weird Boy himself is still a ridiculous fine cast thing based on a metal kit that came out back in the early 2000s. So our whole HQ is a mess. Our elites are no better. The Knobs kit is absolutely ancient. I want to say that kit dates back to like 2004-ish when that one actually came out. Same thing with Mega Knobs. They are absolutely ancient. They're from the 2010s, if not older. And that's all we've really got. We've lost everything else. There are no more Scar Boys. There are no more Ard Boys. There are no more Knobs on bikes. Like, all of these great units that we used to have are gone. I mean, even the troops themselves, back in the day, Slugga Boys and Shooter Boys used to be 2 different units. Yeah, they've always kind of been in the same box, but they were 2 different units. You also had Stick Bombers, which haven't been a thing forever. Again, you had Ard Boys, were troops there for a little while, where you could put extra armor on your boys. You had Truck Boys that were a thing. They were like their whole own separate unit of these orcs that rode around in their trucks, very speed freaky. You had Grots as your troop detachments on the regular, not just in one specific detachment. All of that is gone. All we've got is Beast Nagas and Boys. And the Boys have lost so much flavor because of the issues with the 2 kits that they're really, really hamstring right now. So the troops need a ton of help. Now, Fast Attack, yeah, we are doing pretty good. All of the buggies are relatively new and very, very cool, but the Bikes kit is absolutely ancient. It dates back to like 1998 or something like that as the actual basic kit. And yeah, it's a really, really fiddly kit with lots of pieces that's easy to glue together wrong and screw up. And yeah, that makes it not that popular. Not to mention they've had to rebase it to put it on the oval bases now, and they kind of fit on there wonky and funny, and yeah, just the whole thing. And of course, not having a War Boss and War Bike to lead them. I know there's the Deathkiller War Trike, but that's not the same thing. Not having knobs on War Bikes anymore, like, you're losing a lot of the flavor there too. So even the Fast Attack could use some help on our most iconic unit. Then you get to lack of heavy support, really. We do have the Death Dread kit, which is an excellent kit, but the Killicans, again, are one of those kits where even though you get multiple weapon options in the kit, it's only one of each thing. So you can't even build a squad of 3 kilocans where all 3 weapons match, which is what most people do when they build a squad of 3 things. So it makes it very, very frustrating for new players or people buying that kit and going, what the heck, I can't even really do this right. Then you have the opposite problem with the Mek gun. The Mek gun comes with the 4 weapons and only 1 chassis. So people are going out and buying a truck kit and a Mek gun kit, and now they're building all 4 Mek guns out of the 2 kits, you know? So just none of the builds out of the box make any sense. We don't have a looted tank anymore. Where the heck is the looted tank? It's in the new Speed Freaks video game, which, by the way, is on Steam right now and is absolutely amazing. You should totally go play that game. Not sponsored. I just love the heck out of it. But you could drive around in a looted, not a Land Raider, a Leman Russ that's proper looted. Like, it has the turret and all of the add-ons from the old Forge World looted kit. It's amazing. Like, people love the looted wagon. Which, speaking of looted, Ludas themselves are ridiculously old. They also date back to that whole original, like, 1998-ish orc kit with the badonkadonks in it. I love the kit bashability of it, but I mean, let's face it, that kit is ancient, and Games Workshop doesn't like ancient kits, and especially doesn't like kits where you have to buy another kit to complete it. Remember that you can't even really build that kit correctly, because one of the arms that you need for the Spanner Boy to hold this thing properly is actually in the old boy's kit on the upgrade sprue that has the knob and the special weapons. So unless you buy the old Orc Boy kit, you can't even build the Ludas properly. So yeah, we have a ton of kits with a ton of issues. Even the truck. Now, again, I love the truck. I own 6 of them that are original trucks, not looted trucks, actual 6 trucks. Fantastic kit. It is probably the most detailed kit Games Workshop has ever done. Flip it over, and it's got a full drivetrain, drive shaft, you know, low range transfer case box, differentials, the works. It's got a radiator with a cooling fan. This thing is awesome. It's more like a scale model than a wargaming piece, which is the problem. It's more like a scale model than a wargaming piece, and it drives players absolutely batty, and it is huge on the battlefield. It has a bigger footprint vertically and horizontally than a Land Raider. That is crazy. That is absolutely nuts. So when you really sit down and look at the orc range, again, from a money perspective, there is a ton of opportunity there. Games Workshop can do a launch box with push fit minis and do a Slug-a-Boy squad, a Gretchen squad. They can throw some knobs in there. They can do kilocans. They could do war bikers, that just like the Outriders have for the Beakies. They can do so many things. You even have your Storm Boys need updating. The Burna Boys, which come in the Ludo box, but the Burna Boys could use updating. It just goes on and on and on and on. So you have this opportunity for a huge range refresh that would get people excited for the faction again and boost sales. It would get people into 40K. You have this tie-in with a major media product that you are making, and well, not just making. Again, Dawn of War has already come out as that remastered edition, but you know Dawn of War 4 is coming and is also going to heavily feature orcs. So you want to tie into that. You know that you've got a captive audience in people buying these as gifts for their loved ones, and seeing armored dudes versus green guys is such a classic trope that they're not going to have any qualms about buying it. So just every single thing makes sense that orcs are absolutely the antagonists in 11th edition. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat my hat. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. I was just super excited to see the range coming on the Dark Eldar. Again, I know it's only 2 characters, but the fact that they did get their codex in 10th edition and so late in 10th edition and all those other things that we just spent the last who knows how long yabbing on about, I think this is absolutely in the bag. Dark Eldar are out. Everybody else is out. The only protagonist and antagonist combo that makes sense in 11th edition launch box is Space Marines versus orcs, which is going to make for a very, very awesome time, especially if we end up getting a whole 4 years of 11th edition before they restart again. So here's hoping on that one. All right, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks all for hanging out with me. Don't forget your merch at the merch store, especially our black shirt. This thing is just so good. All of your support means the world to me, especially as we come up on Orktober, where old Big Mek goes extra nutty and makes a brand new video every single day of the month. And that is going to take an absolute ton of work. So everything that you can buy, support, do, sign up for our Patreon, be a channel member, buy merch, like, subscribe, share, all of it, any of it absolutely helps out. And I appreciate each and every one of you. All right, until next time, walk on!